Hey guys, it's Alex from the Coffeevine. Welcome to my channel. For my latest interview with the roasters that I work with for my monthly coffee box, I met up with John Allen, who is the owner and founder of Onyx Coffee Roasters in Arkansas, US, and Lance Hedrick, who is the head of sales at Onyx, to get a sort of picture of Onyx's wonderful journey from being a startup roaster in the Midwest to becoming one of the United States' most formidable coffee roasters. They were featured once before in one of my boxes in 2018, so it's really, really exciting to have them once again back in one of my boxes. This time with a super, super beautiful Rwandan coffee from Kanzu number 5. And incidentally, I'm also going to be the first European coffee subscription company that will feature this absolutely stunning new packaging, which they developed and released recently. During this conversation, we talked about Onyx's very, very admirable program on traceability, sustainability, and transparency in coffee sourcing. We discussed some of the interesting projects that they're working on. And I'd love you to be there for this interview. So please stick around, and I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm now joined by Lance Hedrick and John Allen from Onyx. I'm really excited to have you guys here for this little interview. Thank you so much. John, maybe we can start with you briefly, maybe a short introduction, and then we can go to Lance, and then we can get started.
Sure. So John Allen with Onyx. We founded Onyx, I guess, in 2012 with both my wife and I, and started out as sort of roaster and green buyer, transitioned more into sourcing, and now have transitioned more into the creative side, but still do quite a bit of our quality control and kind of final purchases on the sourcing side.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Lance, what about you?
Yes. My name is Lance Hedrick. I am the head of wholesale at Onyx Coffee Lab. I've been there for over 3 years now. Absolutely love it. I get to engage with people all over the world and spread the Onyx love. So it's been a lot of fun meeting people all over, and and I help sometimes with like quality control and different things like that, and do some bouncing ideas off John, though he is the main idea guy. So, but I do what I can when I can. So.
Fabulous. So let's maybe go straight into the sort of wholesale and green buying element, because I know that you guys are very progressive with regards to your transparency, and you have made really great steps towards being very clear about who gets what in the whole chain. But of course, I guess with Corona, this has been quite challenging for you guys, not being able to necessarily visit your partners as much as you would love. So maybe you can just explain a little bit what the sort of idea is behind your approach to transparency and why it's so important, and what you guys do that makes you guys unique.
Sure. Yeah, I think, we started going kind of full public or published transparency about 4 years ago now, maybe 5 years. And it really came out of a frustration more with the coffee industry itself. I know, when we first started out and kind of like trying to understand how coffee is even sourced, what the economics are, where things go. And as you probably know, the coffee industry is a very secretive industry, like many commodity industries. And so it was just really difficult to get information. But as we sort of progressed and started to learn about, really where the money was going, the allocation of budgets, the ins and outs of the supply chain, just became increasingly frustrated with the process, I think. And so, we tried a lot of things to resolve this and could never really pinpoint. We tried creating our own certification for a while, thinking like, okay, this will sort of like help people understand like where we stand, also educate consumers on what's actually happening with coffee. And clearly, failed at that, I think, to be honest. I think we quickly realized that, whether you're putting direct trade on your bag or all these different kind of buzz keywords, sustainable or relationship coffee, like call it what you want. really at the end, there's no checks and balances to anything like that, right? Like basically any of those words are only as good as the ethics of the company. So if I meet, you know, the godfather of green sourcing, Jeff Watts, and he says it's direct trade, like Jeff's a great person, like totally believe in what he does, like great. But like I also see the direct trade at, you know, the local grocery store here that's being sold for $5 a bag, and you can quickly realize what, you know, there's some economic issues there. And so I think what we really just came to was like, let's stop trying to create something new, and how about we just publish everything that we encounter. And that provides a lot of checks and balances and safety for ourselves, because it's very easy when times are tough in business to, you know, immediately cut costs on green coffee, or to short money here or there, buy bulk and volume on certain blenders, so to speak, or fillers. And that is a real pressure to give into that at all time in business. And so for us, because I was making the buying decisions and we could sort of like decide ourselves as a company, we just started this thinking through like, okay, well, if we just published literally every transaction in our margins and everything about that, then like socially we're kind of held responsible ourselves. And so it's kind of interesting because it's been this great dynamic where our ethics are actually kept in check by the public and also by our producing partners. So that was one of the main big reasons we decided to kind of go that route. I think there's the other side was sort of that the information and data on how coffee was sold was not getting to the producers to begin with. So it's very common for you know, a coffee farmer in Central America to not know what his coffee is worth in North America, right? Like, or wherever it's being sold. And to understand that value is really empowering once that's out there. And so, you know, if you are growing a Pacamara that's scoring an 88 in El Salvador, and you see your neighbor in the same mountainside is selling his to us for $5 a pound green, and yet he's selling his to an importer for $2.20. You know, there's some real education there that can start to like, I'm not saying he's going to get the same amount necessarily, but there's at least like some understanding of the market. And that access has not been put out there, I think, until roasters are starting to put that to paper, because it's never going to be in the importer's best interest to be publishing you know, what they're paying for coffee. And that's not necessarily to demonize them, right? I mean, that's part of the business, and there are some ethical, you know, issues around like publishing what people are making. So I don't even think that what we're doing is like, you know, some sort of key or end all be all to solving some sort of coffee crisis. I do think it's a good step in the right direction, and we keep on evolving, you know. But yeah.
And Lance, let me sort of take your view on this, because you obviously you sell your coffees to different people, and what is kind of the response from your customers when you talk about this full transparency? Is that something that they greatly value? Is that something that they don't really understand, or what is the feedback that you get from your customers?
Yeah, it's definitely a linchpin of kind of, I guess, my sales pitch, I guess, is I always bring up people that our top two priorities are quality and transparency. So I always kind of harp on those two things, and I think they're definitely hand in hand. But yeah, typically whenever I'm talking about our transparency and our drive to continually pay more and more for coffee, to pay premiums on coffee, to ensure that we're pushing capital down the chain to the producing countries, to the producers themselves, people are always kind of I guess shocked just because, you know, it's so anti-business, right? It's the opposite of what people do in America for business, or in any country for that matter. You know, capitalism breeds on furthering your margin, right? Your profit margin. And a lot of the times that's not at all what we're trying to do. Like with our recent Tanzania coffee, we just put a big premium on it so that it would, you know, fit our buying desires. So people are always just so they're shocked when they hear it, and they're, you know, more times than not, people, it's like the deal sealer for people, right? They're like, they feel more they want to invest in a company that is ensuring that, well, you know, what we're doing, bringing coffee in the country, is reflective of the process as a whole, from the farm to us. They can feel safe that there's not really any corners being cut, whether we're working with an importer or whether we're doing it directly. We're trying our best to ensure that everything is displayed, so that, as John was saying, we have kind of this social checks and balances going on, where it's, I mean, if we're doing something incorrectly, we have it posted and people can call us out on it, right? So, yeah, more times than not, people are extraordinarily impressed by it, you know. But then again, there are some shops that work with only roasters that are being transparent. So I remember there was one who straight up just asked me, "Well, what's your FOB?" You know, I don't work with roasters that don't have that aren't above this threshold. So that is rare, but it's something I hope begins happening, where you know, multi-roaster cafes have a specific threshold in place. They're not going to work with a roaster unless the roaster is properly, even with their blends, paying more than $1.50 a pound, right? So this idea that fair trade's not good enough, right?
Because you know, we have this kind of like idea, I guess, you know, also with America has a lot of, like, you know, these organic supermarket brands like Whole Foods and so on. I think people have become so accustomed to finding labels on products that sort of have some kind of promise. But then you don't really know, unless you dive deep and you actually get all of that information from the brand, what that actually means for the producer. And I think what you guys are doing, you know, what some other coffee roasters like Coffee Collective, for example, are doing, you know, is really like actually showing the entire chain, so that everyone understands what is being paid to who and how many people are actually involved. Because a lot of people don't even know that for commercial coffee, there are so many hands involved, you know, not just picking, but also like all the different like resellers that are involved, that you actually lose track.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
What is?
I'm
sorry. Please go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's also a long-term gain to, you know, the general public understanding what it takes to produce a cup of coffee. I mean, that, you know, it might hurt in the short run for, you know, some of these prices you pay for coffee, and getting it out there, and also maybe losing exclusivity to certain coffees once you publish everything out there that other roasters may go and buy. But the long term is that people are more comfortable when roasters start to increase prices, or cafes increase the price per cup, and they can point to something and say, hey, this is why. Like, most people can do the simple math to see a $10 a pound coffee probably shouldn't cost $1 once it's brewed, right? And so it does allow baristas and cafe owners and different people to have like sort of a tool to utilize and help justify the industry that they know is true in their heart, but that you know, the general public may not be able to rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. So since we last worked together, the last time was in February of 2018. It's already quite a while ago, and you guys have evolved a lot. We have evolved a lot. And I'd love to speak a little bit about your journey since then. What has been kind of like the most important change that you guys have experienced in the last maybe 1 or 2 years? Maybe Lance, you can tell us a little bit about that, because you've been with the company for 3 years, you said. That's pretty much the time that, you know, were you actually already working there when we worked together the last time? I don't remember speaking with you at the time. Okay.
Yeah, it was 1 month after. Yep, I started in March. I was joking. I was saying the biggest change was me.
Well, I'm sure you are a wonderful addition to the company. They're very proud of you. So why don't we start with you? Maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you've seen happening at Onyx over the last 3 years, and some of the things that you think are like really important changes. Obviously, we can also talk about the beautiful packaging in a moment.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. So when I came aboard, Onyx had been in existence for 6 years, right? So you know, with any business, those first like 5 years, definitely, you know, you're really finding who you are. And I feel like in 2018, and I've been following Onyx since about 2 years after they opened, from afar, but I've been following what they were doing. And there was, you know, there was obvious stylistic changes, and there were obvious, you know, changes in how they served coffee and how they roasted coffee and whatnot. But then I feel like once I came aboard, it was really when they were hitting the groove, I guess, their groove. And since then, it's just been kind of, it seemed like a lot of things had been forecasted at the time I came. I remember having conversations of things that are just now materializing. So it seems that it was just a lot of plans and dreams and ideas that started to finally like coalesce and materialize in these last 3 years, including, you know, the branding that John will be able to talk a lot more to. But with it, we've also been able to grow, which has been nice. And this allows us more buying power to really diversify our offerings. I remember when I first came on, you know, we had a diverse selection, but for the most part, it was like heavy in certain origins that were really killer that year. And a lot of that was just, we were restricted on some things. John was doing all the traveling because when I came on board, he was the only green buyer, and he was opening the shops, and he was doing all of the design element. He was, I mean, doing everything. And so that, you know, obviously kind of bound our hands. And then we pulled on Dakota, I think December of 2018. And since we were able to expand to our green buying team, it's, you know, it's allowed John to do other things, and it's allowed other team members to kind of branch off and kind of just freed some hands up. So I don't know if there's really an answer in that, because I still feel so new and green at the company. But to me, it feels like just a lot of materialization of ideas that were already in the works over these last 3 years, and they've been able to come because of you know, like success in competition, as well as the growth we've been able to experience. So.
Fantastic. Maybe John, I can also get your opinion, since obviously you're you know, the man who does everything, it seems, except for obviously the sales, which is your. But you're actually at a construction site right now. Is that a new shop you're opening, or is that some other thing that you're working on?
It is. It's a new project that we started. We basically signed the lease about a week before COVID really hit, and then realized, okay, we can't get out of this. We got to start going on the project. But it's it's been a fun project that we've been working and designing on for at least conceptually for many years. And so we usually take 2 or 3 years per location and really think through, you know, the architecture and what we're wanting to say and what is the community around us that we're putting it in.
May I ask where you are?
So that it does it. Sure. We're in Johnson, Arkansas.
Okay. Amazing. How many shops do you guys have at this time?
This will end up being our 5th shop. Mm-hmm. So the goal is to not do too many more, to be honest. You know, maybe one more, something like that. Yeah, less is more on that aspect, I think.
Always. So tell me a little bit about this absolutely spectacular packaging, which I first saw at Hummingbird, which is a cafe that's serving your coffees for some time. I mean, what I love about it doesn't even, I mean, that's not what I love about it, but it doesn't even look like coffee. It actually looks like some kind of, you know, really expensive perfume or something like this, you know, which comes in this very elaborate box. It's very, very sort of detailed, but it's also very sort of delicate. And you kind of have to look closely to see, you know, for example, on the back, you see never settle for good enough and things like this. So tell me a little bit about how you came up with this design and why you wanted to go in this direction.
Sure. Yeah, you know, we had, I guess we worked on it for about 2 years, and we kind of came to the point, really, I guess, even a couple years prior to that, I was kind of ready to leave the brand a little bit and start to, as we were all kind of like growing up. I mean, part of Onyx is funny because it feels like we're all getting, I'm not necessarily saying that I'm wise and mature now, but as we're growing older, and, you know, I have a family now, and it's like your taste changes, and the things you appreciate change, your vision changes on things. And so the goal was kind of to put that maturity into the packaging as well. As you know, for us, aesthetics is very important. I think it sets the bar and the expectation for the sensory experience itself. So you know, it's not just about looking good, but it's that your expectation of the coffee should hopefully be higher when the packaging or the cup or the architecture of the cafe is right. So really setting that standard from the beginning was super important. And just kind of we kind of joked about it earlier, but taking the less is more approach from at least a visual standpoint, and thinking more about even your experience with coffee, like what it's like, the texture aspects, the emotional aspects, all the different things, and like kind of how can we convey that in this box. And so the first thing we really concentrated on was actually not the look or the color or the feel, but was going to be touch. So it was like, once you touch it, what does it feel like? Which is where kind of the embossing and debossing and the soft touch coating and all these kind of little elements came from, was like really wanting to give a complex tactile experience for holding. And then it became, you know, quickly, once we kind of determined that, it became sort of obvious that it needed to be a box and not a bag. These elements need to be there. There was also, you know, from a logistical standpoint, a side notion where we were starting to grow e-commerce a lot, and we were shipping a lot of bags, and they would get broken in transit, and then they would either come back, and we started weighing out the loss of revenue, also the carbon footprint of basically like shipping bags twice, and started weighing that against doing boxes, and it all just seemed to kind of coalesce into this perfect idea of like, okay, this is what we need to do.
Beautiful.
So yeah,
it has such a, I mean, you guys have different colors. I've seen a beautiful black, I've seen a beautiful kind of like a yellow, kind of greenish. I think when it comes to, you know, sort of representing the high quality of the coffee that you guys work with, I totally agree with you that, you know, a sort of beautiful box that kind of has a full sensory experience, if you like, because it's also about like opening it, and then you open the bag and you smell the coffee, you grind it, and it's just such a beautiful process, I think, that you guys have developed here. It's really impressive. I'm really, really excited to be featuring this beautiful packaging in my box. I'd love to just quickly touch upon something that you just said about the carbon footprint, because you guys also roast your coffees with solar power, right?
right.
Maybe Lance, you can tell me a little bit about how that sort of that ecological, or maybe sort of more environmentally friendly approach is being translated into different parts of your company.
Yeah, absolutely. So yesterday being Earth Day, we posted a lot about it on our Instagram, and had information. I don't know if it's still there at the link in bio. I'm assuming it is, but so there are a lot of steps we've taken to become more sustainable as a company, and trying to trace sustainability back to the farm level. It's obviously difficult doing the latter, but we're doing what we can and releasing information that we can in those efforts. But yeah, so we finally finished, we had been wanting to do solar panels for a bit, and we finally finished getting it all done in maybe late spring of last year or so. I can't remember the exact timeline, but it was earlier last year that we were able to convert our whole roastery to solar power. So everything in the roastery, all of our roasters, I say all of them, we have two roasters and then a couple of sample roasters. But so that was a huge step. And then with our packaging, we're using bio tray bags. So those are biodegradable. And then the boxes are really, it's a cardboard base that is very easily recyclable, right? So we're trying our hardest to ensure that we are leaving as small of a footprint as possible, right? So John can obviously talk a lot more to this, just because, he was part of the selection team as far as what materials we were using. But even with our mailers, whenever people order a coffee, it comes in a biodegradable type bag. So we're pushing just on every level as sustainable as possible, because of course we want to do our part in saving the earth, right? So it's important to us, along with the transparency and quality, to ensure that we're being forthright and I guess on the forefront of being sustainable. So there's a lot more we can do and a lot more we're working towards. But people who are watching this can check out those posts on our Instagram about our commitments at each level, from packaging to the sourcing level to roasting. And John, like I said, can add to that.
Well, John, if you have any additional points, I'd love to hear what other things you guys are doing on that front.
Sure. Yeah, I think from an impact standpoint, I think the biggest is actually on the producer level of as new alternative processing is coming out, trying to support farmers that are doing that by obviously purchasing their coffee and paying premiums on producers that are focused on cleaning up acidic runoff, using less water during processing techniques, things like that. The real footprint of coffee is all going to come within the agronomy side. I mean, the solar roastery was something we had been wanting to do for a really long time. The goal was actually to get the whole facility on solar, and it just turned out that the roastery used so much power that we could only offset the roastery and not the cafe as well. But we still have plans to try to slowly figure that out. But I think the real footprint and ecology of coffee is going to be supporting producers that are working on their processing techniques, and then finding new innovation that is maybe that's planting biodiverse native species around the coffee, not worrying so much about yield, but growing access to shade plants, biodynamic like fertilizer and planting techniques, things like that. And the more that we can purchase those and then obviously publish that out there on each coffee, we've already seen sort of an uptick in a lot of those farming techniques or connecting producers to each other that have questions. What we've noticed is, while the coffee industry is somewhat secretive, usually the agronomy side of things is pretty open and very community focused. And so it's great to, put our friends in Colombia together with our friends in El Salvador and say, hey, you guys just take over the conversation. Here's what they're doing. That's really helping leaf for us without having to spray so much. Or here's what these guys are doing on their fermentation levels to where they're using half the water they were using before, things like that. And so it's not even really what we're doing as much as just being sort of the connecting glue, which is a real power that roasters kind of have by connecting all these different, very talented producers together that never would come across each other in normal social circles, right? And so it's been really fun to see all these multicultural producers that are all incredibly talented in their own field. You might start the introduction, but then they take off and they leave me to where I have no idea what they're talking about anymore. And you just get excited about what's like coming out. So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about this wonderful coffee that will be in the May coffee box? It's from Rwanda, from Kanzu number 5. I guess that's also the co-op name. What can you tell me about your with this co-op and what makes them sort of like unique in your sort of like set of requirements?
Yeah, we don't work a lot in Rwanda, so it was a really, honestly, that was like an unexpected, really surprise offering that we were super excited about. Usually similar to the way a lot of Kenya harvesting goes, there'll be like week productions that end up with some sort of outturn number. And so you can end up separating those outturns of production and cupping through those harvests. And so you may cup, 80 different kanzus before you kind of like pick through one that ends up working. And as you may know, in Rwanda, they have real issues with potato defect. And so both Rwanda and Burundi were very careful about releasing any offerings from there. And normally that means that they're really small. Like we've done a couple of Burundis this year, both have, basically disappeared in about a week. This was one of those unexpected surprises where it was like this totally beautiful kind of like bright lemongrass, kind of like green tea, just really clean, sweet coffee that also happened to be in like an incredible lot size. And so, something like one of these types of coffees usually never make it to a program like what you have because they're just such small offerings that maybe we would just release it on e-commerce or even just send it to one wholesale client and say, hey, this is a great coffee, this is your lot or something like that. So I'm super excited for you to be able to share with a lot of people, because I think it's just a really unique flavor profile, at least especially for Onyx, and also Rwanda, who's doing some really great strides to produce high-end specialty coffee, does not get a lot of fame. And so, yeah, I think it'll be interesting for people to try.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially if you don't have a lot of Rwandans in your program, I think this is really just a jewel in your program that I'm very fortunate to have and to share with my customers. So Lance, maybe we can go to you. Sort of, we're coming to the end of this little interview, but I'd love to hear a little bit about maybe from your perspective, what are some of exciting things that you guys are working on for this year? And maybe you can, apart from the construction that John is currently at, what are you guys excited about for 2021?
I am so over the top excited about our coffees that we have coming in. So I've bugged John and Dakota to keep sourcing funky coffees, and to be honest with you, my favorite coffees, and I'm pretty sure this is the same with John and Dakota, both are high elevation washed African, like Ethiopia coffees, just really sweet and floral. But there is a huge trend, of people wanting funky coffees, right? These like anaerobic style, sealed in a plastic bag for 3 days, then, on dried raised bed, et cetera. So we have just a ton of unique coffees coming in on top of an incredible haul from Ethiopia that should be, I think some of it's already landed, but I always get so excited this time of year because the Ethiopia coffees start arriving, and those are just, my favorites. But on top of all that, I'm actually, I'm hoping as COVID, it becomes less and less thing, more people get vaccinated. I'm hoping for people to be able to visit, because I think that new location John's at is going to be really special and a really fun place to take people around. But I love hosting people here, and the idea of things opening back up for me to be able to host people in Northwest Arkansas is really exciting. I think the coffee this year is going to be, we're sourcing more and more, and we're like more and more, I guess, origins, and we're trying new ones. So some surprises may come along the way, but I'm just so excited about our coffee offerings and the promise that it holds this year, based off of conversations with our other green buyer. And yeah, it's going to be really fun. We currently have a really banging menu that I'm super stoked on. That's anchored by some really special coffees. Anywhere from really clean washed pink bourbones to a really funky soon to come anaerobic coffee that I'm excited about us dropping. But anyway, there's I don't know, I'm just really excited about the coffees. I'm always excited about coffee. I work in coffee as a salesperson.
Exactly.
But particularly this year is going to be it's just nuts already. So far it's already been nuts, and it's just going to continue with the craziness. So I love having 1,000 offerings.
Well, I just want to say thank you to both of you for joining me, and I want to say thank you to Onyx for the amazing work that you guys do to bring transparency to the coffee community, and also, of course, for featuring this gorgeous coffee. Well, for offering this beautiful coffee for my May coffee box. I really cannot wait to share it with people and to get their feedback and to sort of tell your story. And I want to say thank you to both of you, and I wish you a lot of success with the construction and a lot of success with your new coffee launches. And I'm hopefully excited about maybe visiting you guys one day.
Yes, we'd love to host you.
Yeah, it'd be so nice. I'd love that. Well, thank you guys. Have a wonderful day, and looking forward to sharing your coffee with the world.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation with John and Lance, and if you did, then please leave a comment down below. Let me know if you've tried any of Onyx's coffees in the past, and whether you're looking forward to trying this lovely coffee that will be in my upcoming May coffee box. And I hope to see you again for another one of my interviews very soon.